Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Carlo. Carlo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Carlo, I'm excited for this episode. The pre conversation for this has been great. I'm excited for what we're going to talk about and hear some of your stories and some of that fun experience. But before we dive into it, catch us up on your work career and all that kind of fun stuff.
So I am a head of sales and marketing for a construction technology company. I came into this role because I was a director of business development for a general contracting company, a large scale company. We did about 500 million. And I got into construction because I was an engineer in college and I got recruited through a career fair. Surprisingly, I just got dragged aside by a vice president of Turner Construction, a large firm. I think they're number two in the country. And he saw something and he said, I see how you're helping out the other students. I think you'd be good for our culture. And I started my career into construction and I kind of raised up the ranks operationally. I have an operation background and then I gained about 10 years of BD. And over the last 4 years, I've had about 4 years of sales and marketing experience. Mainly, I needed marketing to help me execute the BD and sales initiatives that I wanted. And so I took on the control to ensure the result that I was looking for that the company needed. So, full authority, full decision making power. I report directly to the CEO. So, it's been really nice to be able to create the vision that I see as most impactful.
I love that. And you're in that unique position where you run multiple departments. You're head of marketing, you're the head of sales and business development. So that's going to really set the stage for this conversation. So when it comes to it, what does content's role play kind of in this whole life cycle? Because you get the whole life cycle. You get that marketing to sales, business development, the relationship. What's content's role in that whole process? And how are you utilizing content to help with relationships and sales and things of that nature?
Content is really the tools that I have pre-sales department and a business development department. And both departments, whether we're going out to a networking event like a conference or we're reaching out to a customer, are essential. You really are able to do a lot more and leverage those two positions, pre-sales and business development, with the right content. And that's one of my frustrations as I was breaking into a new division in my previous company is I wasn't able to inspire the marketing department to give me the content that I felt would help us, and that this is more during the pandemic, help us pivot away from our core service line and offering to a new service line that could become our core. And it was very frustrating. I was almost in tears talking to my vice president. I'm like, man, I need this. I really need this content, and I need it now, right? Like the urgency of the pandemic was very apparent. So now in my current role, I get to listen to my operational leaders on what we have as a product. And I get to listen to my BD people and pre-sales people and say, who are the people that are best suited and have the most need? And then I get to go into my marketing team and bring the people that I need, operations and BD and salespeople, and say, okay, it sounds like we need to put these two together. What is going to make the customer, as we're approaching them, a big one is credibility. How do we establish credibility? Because if they don't think you're credible, and that could start with things like your title, your general introduction, the company's introduction. If you don't have that, if you miss those pieces and you just start talking about the product, and how great it is, it might be great to you, especially operational people. They have what's called product bias. Just go on for forever about how the product is. I was like, hey, they don't know who you are, right? And so if you go to my website, you'll see I have a leadership page, and it's because when a client came into our website as a form of our content, they would go to our landing page and they would quickly jump over the services to our leadership page. They were looking at who we were. And so we ended up having to spend, I think I spent another like 25,000, 30,000 on revamping the whole. If you go to my page, you'll see there's an overview, company overview. And I had to ask leadership to like, hey, stop. Startup companies have little amount of time to give away from the product and the execution and the development. Said, I need more time, you guys. We got to fix this because the customers and their customer journey go landing page to leadership. And you guys think it goes landing page to offerings, and it's not. Right. So we got to you got to connect those things and follow that journey. And then you can get great results. At the end of the day, you can speed up the customer journey. You can get them what they need. You can get them that comfort level to then reach out. And that's where content plays a big role. It sets the stage for the pre-sales people. It allows them with the right tools and the right pieces of content to walk them through the pre-sales, get them into a strong position for BD, and then BD can take them through a point where they can finally give you a project to take a look at. And then that's where operations come back in for creating the estimates and doing the work.
I
So
love that. That's so cool. And I love how you found that content insight about the people, the leadership, the authority of the business is more important than even the services we provide because that's the gateway to get in there. That is where you get those golden insights. That's one of those where it makes perfect sense. So I want to double click into this process that you have though, because you have that marketing team and you're coming and you say, okay, we need this material. And you said you're bringing in the people with you and all that kind of stuff. How are you actually finding those insights from those individuals on your team to say, this is where we need to prioritize content? This is where we need to go. And then how are you getting the marketing team educated and along the ride to have them really understand the pain point you're trying to solve?
yeah, the first part, I mean, we can take an activity. We can take something that's probably our biggest spend, networking events. So I'm in B2B, and a lot of my clients are in these isolated networks. So mission critical data centers. You've been hearing a lot about data centers. 70% of my clients are data centers. Well, it's a very closed network. It's not an open network. Not everybody builds data centers. Not everybody's allowed to participate in the building of them. It's a lot of money, and they build very fast. So at a networking event, before we go to a networking event, first we have to evaluate from the BD, like listen to them and as they propose which networking event and why and how that fits into the strategy, business development. But from a marketing standpoint, marketing then begins a process of working with them. One of our tier one, we call them tier one, tier two, tier three, tier four. And on a tier four, we'll just send out two people to a networking event. But on a tier one, we could be spending up to like 150 to $200,000. And as a startup company, that's a lot of money, right? And are you going there to, you know, be wild and crazy and do all this fun stuff? Well, yeah, that part's there. There's a lot of fun to be had at a network. There's a lot of socializing and a lot of excitement. But at the end of the day, if you don't come back in a certain amount of time with customers and you keep doing this, well, now it's a bad investment because there's no return. So what you want to do is if you're going to spend that amount of money, you need to look at what you can do before you go to the networking event, which is we call it pre-event marketing, what you're going to do at the event, which is during event marketing, and then post marketing. What are you going to do to follow up, right? Because you can get these huge lists of customers, and you can outreach to them. You can pre-set up meetings. You can start the awareness. And remember, you're competing for attention. While they're there to learn. They're there to meet as other booths and other vendors. And so attention is key. And so how do I earn that attention? By giving you value. And then how do I establish some sort of association with who we are is valuable to you? And then how do I follow up? Because the trick is in follow up. A lot of fatigue is in follow up. And what is marketing going to offer to the sales and pre sales department so that they can follow up? And we have all kinds of cool stuff: credibility packets, SO statements of qualification packets, videos, landing pages, things that really make them feel like these guys are who they say they are. And that's tough. That's tough in an industry that's very conservative. My industry is not open to new people or new things. They're very concerned because there's a lot of risk. We can't. It's not like we can hit Control Alt Delete. You know what I'm saying? And start over.
Hmm.
You can't start over a building. It's half built. You're stuck, right? Who decided to do this? Is often what I get.
Yep.
I hear from my team. Whose bright idea was it to change the system that was working? So yeah,
I love that. That's super cool.
yeah.
So, one thing that I think is interesting to talk through when you look at content, how are you measuring content success? Like, how do you justify the time? How do you know what content's working, what content's not working? Is it more qualitative coming back from business development and pre-sales, or is quantitative based off of the views or the interactions? How do you kind of look at that and close that feedback cycle?
Well, we have a hierarchy. I created, and I think all marketing departments should create um, an SOP that could help educate their operational people on like how things are created, but also the hierarchy of like what's most valuable. And I think at the bottom of the hierarchy is I think you say it, quantitative, like key performance indicators is what you have to.
Hmm.
Yeah. So when I look at like things like social media, we're pumping out back to the networking. We're pumping out about 3 to 6 touch points in social media about us going to the event, and they're really cool. Some of them are videos, carousels, links to previous white papers regarding that, right? And I'll look at that from a key performance indicator to see what is really grabbing attention, and that will help. And we take that, which is a lot of that gets fed back to whether we're using like on our website, we're using different types of analytics, and we get LinkedIn analytics, and then when we're sending out cold emails with all these hyperlinks, we also get we're using HubSpot for our CRM. I know there's a lot out there, but we find it was the most intuitive to use, and the analytics that we're getting back were very understandable to us, right? And I'm sure there's a ton of like gurus out there marketing like, oh, that's not the right platform, use this platform. But for us layman BD guys and sales guys who are now responsible for marketing, it does the trick, and it's been very, very functional, especially presenting to leadership who's even less interested in the data. So the quantitative plays a role, but it guides us. It does not lead us. That is a big confusion with data. Oh, that we're data driven. Well, data doesn't tell you the full story, and you can misinterpret data, right? So you got to be very careful to say, "Oh, look at all these key performance indicators. We're crushing it." At the end of the day, the I think you said qualitative, which is
Hmm.
in regards to the BD people, are they closing? And all marketing and all sales and all pre-sales, the goal is to invest in these departments or these initiatives so that you can generate revenue. All right, you can make more sales. And so when you forget that, when you only look, when you become myopic to the quantitative data, you can be led astray and you can be sold a bag of goods. I've had consultants, come in and only talk quantitative, and I said, well, how does that work if we're like, how did, I know one consultant was working on, for the company for a year and a half. And I said, well, how many leads have you generated? How many actual customers have the company closed that originated from initiative that you did? And they're like, zero.
Mm,
I was like, how much money have you spent? Because I'm BD, right? BD has,
yeah.
if you do not close in BD, business development, out the door. 6 months later, a year later, out the door. So there is no gray area with BD, but with marketing, all these, I think you said quantitative measurements might look good on paper, but the CEO, CFO, they don't really like that. They want to see results, and that's how you do it. You have to make sure that there's something at the back. You have to tie it all to the back end. Makes
I
sense.
love that. Yeah, that's perfect. I love that answer. Well, Carlo, like I promised, these episodes go by so fast. Like it's over before you know it. But Carlo, if anyone wants to reach out and connect with you online, how and where can they find you?
LinkedIn is probably the best. I work for VEC. There's a lot of them that are named VEC, but you can find me on LinkedIn. Um, you can also find us on our website, www.vec-us.com. And then I have my profile there. Once again, to the website and leadership, I'm there. You get to see my background. You get to see all my team's background, not just me. But you can reach me on those two spots, the website as well as LinkedIn. And yeah, just DM me, and I'm more than happy to share.
Love it. That's amazing. Well, Carlo, again, thank you so much for the time and insights today.
You're welcome, Benjamin. Take care.